website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to David Mackey's Shiny Setup. That's right, we are broadcasting to you from Australia, land down under. This is the 8th or 9th show in the cycle of mind control. Very important we're doing that at the moment, obviously, for various reasons, as you can imagine. And if you didn't know, this isn't a funny radio here. So if you can donate, please do. Any kind of currency is fine, including crypto. So donations are more than welcome. They are necessary for the continued existence of this radio station. Much appreciated. Now,
Part 7. Mind
control. Part 7, indeed. Thank you, sir. Part 7. Yeah, geez. It's a long show. It's because we did this show again, a few years ago. But of course, since then, there has been new stuff. And we've added that to the show. It's now 100 pages, 184 pages of show notes. And important. Now, I am led to believe
it's page
that
65.
We are 65. That's right. So you actually chewed through 13 pages last time. That's pretty good, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. So let me just see what this number is here. This is page count for some reason. 63, 64, 65. Okay. And you're up to 33, you said?
That's correct.
So what Dave has shared with you were the various patents for a variety of mind control patent applications and granted patents, in fact, right? And we're up to 38 then, I guess?
33.
So we are, okay, up to 33. And that's US 20120245659A1, WO 201102583A1, systems and methods for stimulation of neuronal activity. And that was launched by Argus Neuro-Optics. I don't know if you want to do this one by one, Dave, or
sure.
I power through them. Go ahead.
I know, you go
Which one?
first.
I power up. Okay, 34 is US patent 20130013003, A1, method and apparatus of pulsed infrared light for the inhibition of central nervous system neurons. That won't cause any problems. And that was launched by the Vanderbilt University in 2012. The next one is US patent 6256318, stimulation method for the sphenopalatine ganglia, sphenopalatine nerve, or Vividian nerve for treatment of medical conditionism. Ansarinia, and that was Mehdi M in 2000. Next one is US patent 6753690. Interferometric signal processing apparatus, Poseidon Scientific Instruments launched that one. It's a PTY Ltd in 2001. Signal processing, Jesus.
So what number
the next one,
which number you're at now?
37.
Oh, okay.
Is that not where you at?
I know. I was reading the entire abstract and everything for each one. That's why you were dancing through it. No, okay. So these are just the note quote from. Okay, I see what you're saying. No. I've just shared with you the abbreviations. This is the longer one. So number 33. Again, this is US patent 20120245659, and this is some more information. And this is systems and methods for stimulation of neuronal activity. What does it mean? A wide array of medical conditions and associated pain that occur in addition to the various types of migraine and other headaches are all connected to neuronal activity in the head. Where else would it be? In addition to the pain, other conditions include movement disorders, epilepsy, cerebrovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases, sleep disorders, autonomic disorders, urinary bladder disorders, that's a nasty one, subnormal metabolic states, disorders of the muscular system, and neuropsychiatric disorders, to name a few. Next one is patent 2013-13030, A1, method and apparatus of pulsed infrared light for the inhibition of central nervous system neurons. What does it mean? Infrared neural stimulation, INS, represents a relatively new stimulation modality that exhibits high spatial precision and can be delivered in a contact-free method for the stimulation of neural tissue. It's referring to Wells and et al. 2005. Investigations into the use of pulsed infrared light to stimulate neural tissue began in the peripheral nervous system, PNS, where it is demonstrated the ability of INS to reliably evoke action potentials in peripheral nerves. Pulsed infrared light can also stimulate auditory ganglion cells in the cochlea with high spatial precision, establishing INS as a possible alternative to electrical stimulation for cochlear implants. And there's some research listed here. Most recently, embryonic quail hearts were paced by pulsed infrared light, suggesting the possibility of optically based pacemakers. Now, let me be clear here. No longer is an electric impulse needed to stimulate your heart. This can now be done by pulsed infrared light. That's quite disturbing in some ways, but also quite good in others. In the central nervous system, the CNS, the first application of INS was demonstrated in thalamocortical brain slices, a case et al. In 2010. Certain aspects of the present disclosure are directed to stimulate neurons in the brain using INS technique. Certain aspects of the present disclosure are directed to a novel technique that can manipulate cortex activities of a target in vivo, that means a living target. In certain embodiments, INS is used to evoke responses in the CNS of the target. In certain embodiments, INS can evoke responses in the sensory areas of the cerebral cortex, some of which can be similar to those evoked by natural sensory stimulation. The evoked responses can be similar to the responses in the visual cortex, auditory cortex, and somatosensory cortex evoked by the senses of vision, audition, and touch. Infrared laser with predetermined parameters can be applied at or near region of interest, which is ROI, of the cortex of a living target to evoke responses of that ROI. Pulsed infrared lasers can be delivered to the cortex through various optical mediums. In certain embodiments, an infrared laser is delivered through an optical fiber. The magnitude of the response evoked by the INS increases with increasing infrared light energy, produced either by increasing the stimulation frequency or by increasing the radiant energy of the laser. US patent US 201-202-45659, systems and methods for stimulation of neuronal activity. A wide array of medical conditions and associated pain that occur in addition to the various types of migraine and other headaches are all connected to neuronal activity in the head. In addition to the pain, other conditions include movement disorders, epilepsy, cerebrovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases, sleep disorders, autonomic disorders, urinary bladder disorders, subnormal metabolic states, disorders of the muscular system, and neuropsychiatric disorders, to name a few. US patent 6256318, stimulation or a method for the sphenopalatine ganglia, sphenopalatine nerve, or vividian nerve for treatment of medical conditions. Abstract. A method is provided for the suppression or prevention of pain, movement disorders, epilepsy, cerebrovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases, sleep disorders, etc., all the ones I just mentioned before. US patent, this is an interesting one. 6420872B1, probe for detecting a transient magnetic resonance signal. Summary of the invention. It is an object of the present invention to provide an apparatus which detects a magnetic resonance signal and has an improved detection ability and SNR over conventional apparatuses. Claims. An apparatus wherein the probe detects a combined signal which includes the resonance signal and noise. The apparatus further comprising a receiver receiving the combined signal from the probe and detecting the resonance signal from the combined signal by detecting a step increase over time in the power level of the combined signal. Next, an apparatus, as mentioned above, where the resonance signal is one of the group consisting of a nuclear magnetic resonance, NMR, signal, a nuclear quadrupole resonance, NQR, signal, and an electron paramagnetic resonance, EPR, signal, as well as an apparatus wherein the probe induces the resonance signal in the sample by emitting an RF field towards the sample. Background. Description of the related art magnetic resonance is useful to detect the presence of a specific substance in a sample. For example, generally, radio frequency radiation at a particular frequency will induce a magnetic resonance signal in a specific substance, but not in other substances. Therefore, the induced magnetic resonance signal can be detected to thereby indicate the presence of the specific substance. Now, this is all to do with what happens inside your brain. Why don't you tell us about MKUltra, Dave?
Shadowy details of CIA's mind control operation shown in new documents. The US government's venture into drug-induced hypnosis is revealed in historical documents. Tom Hale, senior journalist, edited by Laura Simmons. Newly compiled records are spilling the beans on one of the CIA's most notorious and shadowy programs, MKUltra, a wild attempt to develop mind control techniques through drugs, hypnosis, and psychological manipulation. The collection was published by the Digital National Security Archive of the George Washington University in December 2024. That recently, wow. Detailing more than 1,200 documents on the CIA's foray into behavioral and mind control experiments from 1953 until the 1970s. Much of the information comes from records gathered by John Marks, a former State Department official who initiated the first Freedom of Information Act requests on the topic and authored the book, the 1979 book, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. Some fascinating insights come from Document 6, a memo from 1952 about Project Artichoke, the predecessor of Operation MKUltra. It explains the successful application of narco-hypnotic integrations on Russian agents suspected of being doubled. In sum, the suspects underwent drug-induced hypnosis in experiments aimed at causing amnesia. The dosed-up individuals were interviewed for over an hour, and if all went to plan, they would have little to no memory of the grim. In one experiment, the subjects were given heavy dosages of sodium pentothal, a fast-acting sedative barbiturate, along with desoxin, a potent methamphetamine stimulant. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the interrogation was declared an outstanding success. True Lies comes to mind when he has sodium pentothal, and his wife says, "Have you killed anyone?" "Yes, but they were all bad."
They were all bad.
Another interesting tidbit comes from Document 5, a Daily Planner entry written by federal narcotics agent George White in 1952. White explains that he has been approached by Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist and leading figure in Operation MKUltra, to be a consultant for the CIA. He agrees. White later managed CIA White later managed CIA safe houses in New York and San Francisco, where unsuspecting US citizens were covertly dosed with LSD and exposed to various mind control experiments. A recurring theme throughout the documents is the CIA's extensive reliance on LSD. One particularly intriguing memo from 1953, labeled Document 8, reveals the most LSD obtained by the CIA comes from Eli Lilly Company. However, the memo cryptically notes that the exact means by which the agency secured the drug remains murky. Adding to the intrigue, the document discloses that caches of CIA-owned LSD were stashed at field stations in far-flung locations, including Manila, the capital of the Philippines, and at Sugi, a Japanese city with a US Navy base. Meanwhile, White, the intriguing figure mentioned above, reportedly had his hands on an unspecified quantity of the mind-altering substance. Just a side note before I continue, an amount enough to affect someone is if you were to dip, just use water, if you were to dip a pin into water and let the droplet fall off the tip, what remains is enough to affect somebody. So you've got to understand, just having any quantity of that is crazy. Back to the notes. A particularly interesting insight comes from Document 9. A 1953 letter by Vincent Ruett, the head of the Special Operations Division of the Army Chemical Corps, regarding the death of Frank Olson, an Army chemist and aerosols specialist who died upon falling from a 10-story building in New York City just 10 days after Gottlieb and others spiked his cocktail with LSD. Olson is described as a very popular life-of-the-party type who was outstanding at his job. The day before his death, Olson spoke on the phone with Ruett and appeared to be quite relaxed. Olson's death, which the CIA initially rules as suicide, remains one of the most enigmatic aspects of Operation MKUltra, and was explored in the Netflix series Wormwood. While the documents provide plenty of clues and anecdotes, the full depth and scale of MKUltra's dark secrets remain shrouded in mystery. Operation MKUltra was publicly revealed in 1975 by the Church Committee, a US Senate Select Committee investigating CIA abuses, following an expose by the New York Times. 50 years on, think about that. The project still remains shrouded in secrecy, not least because the CIA attempted to destroy all MKUltra files in 1973. Thankfully, however, these newly compiled documents throw some fresh light onto this strange chapter in US history. Quote here, despite the agency's efforts to erase this hidden history, the documents that survived this purge and that have been gathered together here present a compelling and unsettling narrative of the CIA's decades-long effort to discover and test ways to erase and reprogram the human mind, unquote, the National Security Archive said in a statement. That was originally published in January 8th, 2025. Nice find, Mekki.
And quite timely. And look, to come back as to why this is a short cycle now is, again, I've said it before, but I need to say it in every episode just in case you don't catch all of them. It's a bit of a time investment to go through all of them. I get that. But if you look at the administration, specifically the United States, I'm not even talking about Russia anymore, because Russia, you just fall out the window. Forget mind control. You just slippery floor, open window.
Mm-hmm.
You know, two things that should never happen together, but it seems to happen
in winter.
Yeah, it's the Russian defenestration virus, as we have joked. But if you look at the administration's members today, the people that are around Donald Trump and what they say and how they act and what they do, and compare it to what they were like even 6 months ago,
mm-hmm.
right? but even more so if you go back 8 or 12 months ago, they've done it at 180. The 180 is in almost complete turnaround in all of their opinions. Let me just name a few things which made me suspicious, to say the least. J.D. Vance said Donald Trump is America's Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
How you come back from that and still have a relationship with Donald Trump is beyond me, but that's where we are. But J.D. Vance was venomously opposed to Trump. Rubio, Hexet, and Vance all spoke out quite, angrily and I guess also in a very convincing fashion against Putin. Putin is demonized. In fact, Bill O'Reilly is bringing out a book. I think it's called The Face of Evil and All the Faces of Evil, and Putin features on the front cover, I think together with Hitler and maybe Hussein, I can't remember. But Putin is definitely on the front cover. And they hated him, significantly hated him. And Trump didn't really have much good to say about him either. But so my question is now, how does one change one's opinion on so many things so radically? I mean, we all can change our opinion. That's normal, Dave.
Mickey?
You know? Yeah, well, there's that. But is it enough?
I gave Mickey the sign of money.
Yeah, he is. Rubbing
one's
index finger and thumb together.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, the question I have is this. Let's look at the money thing.
Uh-huh.
Once this, let's say none of the conspiracy theories play out, okay? Donald Trump comes to the end of his turn, and that's it for Donald Trump, okay? For argument's sake. What kind of political capital would Vance and Rubio and Hexet and others have left at this point? They have proven demonstrably that they can't think for themselves. They're sycophants. They are incapable of critical assessment of situations. They're burned. They're completely burned. Yes, well, is he giving them a lot of money? I think it might be generational wealth he's looking for. I think if he does want to stay in power, I think he wants to institute some kind of modern-day monarchy, in America, where he's the king, and the Vances and the Rubios and so forth of the world will become the barons of, Ohio and Texas and who knows what. But of course, there's always about California, Texas, and a few other states won't stand for it. They'll secede, and before you know it, you have a civil war. But this mind control thing is really very interesting. Now, I don't think Donald Trump is mind controlled at all. Okay, I think Putin has dirt on him that he acquired via Epstein. Musk is aware and is actually working with Putin. Because you have to understand, Elon Musk has no loyalties but to Elon Musk. Elon Musk doesn't give a hoot about anyone else but Elon Musk. That's very clear, even in the way he treats his children. I mean, the way a person interacts with their family and especially treats their children gives a lot of, this, Dave, gives a lot away about who they are as a person. Yeah. Okay. Look at how he treats his children. Okay. And look at how he treats family in general. I mean, there was this I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently on Twitter, there was this lady, she was Asian American, attractive, and he followed her, and he finally private messaged her, asking her to have his baby.
She hadn't even said a word yet.
No, that's right. And she said no, thank you, and he demonetized her effectively. And I thought, it's just, I guess if you are the richest man in the world, then women will say yes more often than not. This is my suspicion, right?
Does he have 11 children?
17 apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all over the place, and he's apparently not really in contact with any of them except for the little one that he he's called X. I think the little one is called X. But it's certainly interesting to see how he interacts with the world. He's a terrible speaker. He has no charisma. he is not even that smart, and he has actually not invented anything. I want to be very clear here. He's not a genius inventor. Okay, he's just bought companies, and he comes from money. His father is rich. In fact, he comes from Nazi money in South Africa. His father and grandfather were active supporters of apartheid.
I'm kind
He
of
grew up in
jealous,
South
Mickey.
Africa.
That's my position.
I
on the
know.
whole thing.
He grew up in apartheid South Africa. The way he relates to people is how he grew up. Black people of color, in his mind, are inferior. Okay, he won't say it, but that was his imprinting as a child and teenager when he grew up. And if you look at what all the things that have happened, and what Trump has done, whitewashing again the the history of the American military or the government in general, you can see where this is going real quickly. And his aborted Hitler salute. You can argue if it was a Hitler salute or not, doesn't matter, but he does come from very deep racial hatred. But he's in league with Putin, and Putin has the dirt on Trump. Okay, but the others that came across into the Trump camp, now some of them are not very bright, right? Some are very bright, and they've all drunk the Kool-Aid, Dave. All of them. There's not a single dissenting voice anywhere. In fact, they're defending him in such a way that the defense makes no sense. There's a lady that said it started. Oh, he's playing 3D chess. That's how it started. Then it's 4D chess.
Oh.
Eventually, it went to 5D chess.
Okay.
Did you know that? Yeah, it did. No, he's not. Donald Trump is not playing any kind of chess. Okay, he's playing checkers with a couple of bottle caps. That's what he's doing. Okay, smoking some weed on a corn pipe. Because he's also not very smart. He's not stupid, right? Don't get me wrong, but he's not smart. Tell me, Dave.
Uh-oh. How
is it possible for a casino to fail, unless you build it in Mormon land, right? I mean, how do you make a casino fail? Oh, really? I want to know. Because that's what he...
Well, you could if you didn't let anyone in. That's one way.
Close the doors before they get in.
Quick! Because the most efficient hospital has no patients in it. So, I'm just using that as a guide. Look, it's quite possible that you had a win rate too high. 101%.
101. Yeah, no.
That could do
it. Nobody in the history of casinos that I know, happy to be corrected, has ever tanked a casino. Yes, casinos are torn down to build bigger casinos.
That's right.
But you don't bankrupt. You don't bankrupt a casino. It's impossible. And anyway, neither here nor there. But so mind control. Mind control is important. I do believe that we're seeing targeted, specific mind control with his cabinet members to some extent, in my opinion, and we're seeing much wider mind control in the population. Now, again, for the better part of 100 years and maybe longer, the parasites have been trying to perfect mind control. Mm-hmm. It goes way back, right? It goes way back. And across the world, it's always been the goal of the ruling classes to perfect their ruling mechanisms. Force only goes so far, right? Because eventually there'll be an explosion, a revolution, and people had enough, and it just happens. That it's human nature, right? You can't suppress people forever. You can't. But if you can control them from a very deep level, the mind, through it could be outside stimulation, it could be brainwave alteration, it could be drugs, certainly food, education, all of those things that we mentioned in the shows beforehand.
And online
they've
nudging.
all come. 100%. They've all come together in almost a perfect mix.
Yeah.
To dupe the American population. Now, Hitler and Goebbels knew what they were doing, and I think it was Goebbels who said it, but I could be wrong. The more might have been Goebbels. Yeah. It was either Hitler or Goebbels. Yeah. The more often you tell a lie, the more it has the ring of truth, and the bigger the lie, the better. the bigger the lie, the better. But you have to repeat it over and over. See, Germans, I know this is going to sound strange, but Germans weren't particularly anti-Semitic, especially in the western parts of Germany. Not particularly. Austria, yes. In the east, like Poland, Russia, anti-Semitism was quite rampant. That's a fact historically. You can look it up. But it took a while for Hitler's propaganda machine, you can call it mind control machine if you want, to dehumanize and demonize the Jewish people. It took a while. There were movies, there were constant whispers. It all started with two things: the Protocols of Zion and the Dolchstoßlegende, which is the knife in the back legend. So, World War One, what the right wing told everybody, or the right of spectrum, is that the Jews or the Jewish bankers had sold out Germany, and that led to its capitulation and loss of World War One. But it was the fault of the Jewish bankers. They stabbed an army in the back, right? And out of that grew a lot of movements in Austria and Germany, all over, that sought to rectify the situation and make Germany great again. Make Germany great again. Have we heard that before?
It comes from somewhere else.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And the Protocols of Zion, of course, are this document of somewhat dubious historical provenance, which outlines the Jewish people's plan to take over control of the world. Now, I'm not in the business of blaming any one group for all our ills other than the parasites. And I'm going to be very clear here. When I say parasites, I don't mean the Jewish people. When I say parasites, I mean, in the first instance, all the billionaires, right? And in the second instance, and more importantly, the unseen entities that have been around for a very long time indeed, okay? And these are the actual controllers. The billionaires are happenstance. They're there. They're being used. It's great, wonderful. Plus, it's self-interest for them to work with the actual hidden and potentially very old parasites that have been trying to control us for millennia and longer. Anyway, mind control is now at a point where we can see it every day. You look outside, if you live in a Western, even not any country really, go outside during the day and see how many people are completely consumed by the devices. Completely consumed, right? And those devices, to Dave's point, feed you with all the things that reinforce your opinion, like an echo chamber.
That's right.
Right. And that's what's happening. That's where we are. It is perfection. We have brought up generations of people that have very little ambition or feel they are entitled and need to have everything now. I want everything now. I don't want to work for it. I don't want to wait for it. I want everything now. Now. Now, the Great Reset, to some extent, can actually give you that. Because you've got freedom, you've got a government stipend, you can do whatever you like, you might even do it in style, potentially, right? And as long as you're happy to accept certain restrictions, while your feudal overlords, frolic in the newfound forests that you formerly inhabited, because you're living in a concrete silo. But yeah, so that's why mind control and talking about mind control are such important things. The next section we're going to share with you, we have taken from the CIA website, and these are documents released under Freedom of Information. Unfortunately, most of the documents were photocopied, right?
Yeah.
And they were photocopied very poorly. So I've tried to edit as much as I can. Sometimes the text doesn't make sense, right? I apologize for that, but that's the best rendering. And this is from so they photocopied it, turned it into PDF, and then the PDF I extracted the text and edited it as best as I could. But bear in mind, some was redacted. Sometimes entire pages are missing, and sometimes the photocopying process itself made sections of the text completely unreadable.
Yeah, so okay? the OCR couldn't read it.
Correct. So the first one here is titled SCU Professor's Book Details CIA Attempts at Mind Control. And this is document number CIA-RDP91-00001-0001-00230080-7. Okay, and there's 2 pages apparently in this document. The document was created in 2016, and the document was released in 2001. And the publication date was 1978. 1978. Okay. Yeah, so this was for the Jose Mercury. So this was for a paper, August 25, 1978. Attempts at mind control by Dale Rodebaugh, staff writer, Santa Clara. Okay.
I just before you
For
say
the last-
before you say
Yep.
I want to let everyone know that the CIA had embedded staff from the CIA in all of the major news outlets, including
That's
print
true.
and television media, and they were in roles which could determine what went to air and what didn't go to air, or what went to print and what didn't, and the wording of those such things. You must know
clearly
that
this
that was
didn't?
happening. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find it funny, right? It took 22. It took 23 years
Yeah.
for it to be released.
Mhm.
23 years. Anyway, and the document, the PDF, wasn't created until 2016. So anyway. So for the last, this is the article now, right? And bear in mind, this is photostated, so I'll try to read it with as much sensibility as I can. For the last 30 years, the United States government has carried out the most extensive mind control research and experimentation in history, according to University of Santa Clara law professor who has co-authored a book on the topic. Now remember, this was published in 1978. So they're talking about from a time starting pretty much right after World War II. Examination of 20,000 pages of CIA and Army documents shows that the CIA probed everything from the psychological impact of circumcision to the practices of Haitian witch doctors, Alan Shefflin said in an interview. The Mind Manipulators, this is the name of the book, is not a sensationalized novel written hurriedly to exploit Watergate and other recent Dave, revelations about the intelligence community, Shefflin said. It is the result of 5 years of research and hundreds of interviews and contains more than 1,800 notes, said Shefflin, who teaches legal ethics, law, and psychiatry. His co-author is Edward Upton, a San Francisco attorney. The CIA isn't alone in mind control research. It is practiced to a lesser degree by other government agencies, schools, hospitals, universities, the military, and prisons, Shefflin said. Behavior modification and mind control is there's a question mark here, leading school of psychology today. I guess it's the prominent, or it's where most energy is spent. He said, no other country has conducted experiments in these fields with the zeal and longevity of the CIA. Its experiments can be traced to its predecessor, the Office of Strategic Services, organized during World War II. Now, let's be clear here. The OSA, which was the forerunner of OSS, was the forerunner of the CIA, and the CIA was built with the help of Nazi collaborators that came across with Operation Paperclip, and they, of course, the Nazis, were very much interested in mind control. Again, Alan Shefflin, 5 years of research, agency was very much in control. It knew what it was doing. So there's a number missing. 35 years of research, the agency was, I don't know, the text is missing. Experiments were carried out many times on unwitting citizens, Shefflin said. In addition, the agency was unsupervised, with not even Congress knowing what was going on. Its budget was hidden, coming from many sources, and no one knew how the money was spent. Because of the secrecy, the agency could synthesize the knowledge of the best minds in the nation without scientists knowing it. The CIA also earned its own money by acting as a runner of opium for the tribesmen of and military support it needed. That's a quote. Soviet experiments are nothing. This was in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Soviet experiments are nothing compared to those of the CIA, Shevlin said, because the Russian hierarchy has ruled out areas of research not compatible with its political doctrine. The CIA concentrated experiments in drugs and hypnosis, Shevlin said. He compiled a list of 130 drugs, including heroin, used by, and then the text is unreasonable, something. The CIA has far exceeded its charter, and every president since, and including Harry Truman, authorized violations of that charter, Shevlin said. It's not a pretty picture. What we have is the CIA okayed by the president to intervene for our security all over the world. We can't take over the world, but if its leaders can be manipulated to think a certain way to our advantage, Senator Frank Church's committee that investigated the CIA characterized as a rogue elephant, Shevlin said. But we are trying to show that the one organization funneled money to a federal drug rehabilitation and research agency in Kentucky that offered drugs to inmates. The director of that institution defended the practice before Congress, he said. The CIA was looking for a precise mind control agent in an attempt to get maturing candidates, Shevlin said. But I don't think it can be done. There's no known drug to turn people into robots. That was for approved for release 2003. Dave, why don't you take the last two paragraphs?
But then there is little need for such a drug when people are willing to give up their minds so readily. Just look at the religious gurus. They don't need sophisticated techniques. They can talk people into whatever they want. The danger of behaviour modification and mind control goes far beyond what the CIA has done, Shevlin said. Quote, it is obvious there is a clear link between government and science to perfect mind control, and that there is a spillover of the technology into the general public. Unquote. More and more people know how to manipulate others and are taking advantage of it. The impact of behaviour modification is that they're saying the only thing we're interested in is your behaviour. All the leading proponents of this philosophy are explicit that people must not think of themselves as free. To resist mind control, Shevlin said, we must first understand it, be familiar with their techniques, and know who is using it. Then we must write to legislators and start organisations to resist it, he said. The mind manipulators grew out of the efforts of a group that fought the UCLA Violence Center that proposed, among other experiments, to give amphetamines to black and, is that Chicano school children? We stopped public funding of that project, but they may be doing work now with private funds, Shevlin said.
Yep. Now, I just looked up the book. The book is available on Amazon. I think I might try to get a first edition, which is available. But the book is out there. It's out of print. Okay, so you probably have to find an older copy, used copy, but it is still there. And everybody, there's all the reviews here. There are 5-star reviews from, I guess, scientists and such. So the book is there. It exists, right? If you wanted to have a look at that. And Shevlin himself, I don't know. I think he's still alive. Maybe he fell out of a window, Dave. Let me just find out what happened to him.
Possibly.
Here we go. Shevlin, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, looks like he's still... Oh, no, he passed away August 27, 2023. 81st birthday from complications from a stroke. That's a shame. But yeah, he's no longer with us, but he was at Santa Clara University. So we're sad in the recent passing, etc., etc. But this is 78 he brought all this stuff up, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is when MK Ultra hadn't even been really
acknowledged at that point, not officially. Anyhow, let's get back to the text. Now, this is mind behavior control, and it was released in 1983, and it was published in 1973, but this document, the PDF, was created in 2025, right? With the Freedom of Information Act. Okay, now what is this? Mind control behavior. The purpose of this memorandum is to succinctly outline the various techniques that fall under the rubric of mind or behavior control, paragraph 2, and to indicate which projects, and then the word is not there, has supported, and I assume might be is currently supporting or is considering for support, but may be misconstrued as having the control of others as the primary goal, paragraph 3. The terms mind control or behavior control can be interpreted in content. I think it means context, but again, but yeah, I think the word is context. In context of controlling others or controlling itself. The question of ethics is likely to arise if the former interpretation is used. Whatever interpretation is used, the techniques are not as efficacious or finely tuned as the popular media leads one to believe. Lastly, one should bear in mind that most of the techniques are still experimental in nature and have as a primary goal the understanding of brain-behavior relations, which in turn may lead to control in the sense of therapeutic intervention or patient management. Sure, it's all for your betterment. 2, the following techniques are generally considered under control technology. Psychosurgery, direct intervention into the neurological pathways that mediate or control behavior. The procedure may be non-reversible, surgical extirpation, so they take something out, or reversible electrical stimulation. They simply stop electrical stimulation. This approach has received a great deal of publicity recently in context of surgery being performed to control aggressive behavior. Again, we're talking about the 70s now, yeah? Psychopharmacology. Behavioral control is achieved by altering the brain chemistry. Tranquilizers and energizers are the most common classes. This technique is widely used in clinical medicine. Technique is for the most part safe and effective, but does not really afford fine control. The notion of a peace pill, truth pill, or smart pill is still in the wish stage. Next, behavior modification. This term refers to alterations in behavior that are achieved by using conditioning techniques, usually variations on operant or performance conditioning. The behavior being altered or controlled can be either external behavior or internal, autonomic or central nervous system responses. The conditioning or control of internal responses, biofeedback, particularly those of the central nervous system, for example, alpha waves, has received much publicity as mind central, with fantastic claims for its utility. There's no doubt that the psychological responses are indeed controllable within limits. There's no good evidence that the desired behavioral concomitants are automatically chanced, i.e. creativity increased. On the other hand, there is some evidence that control of autonomous nervous system functions may have therapeutic utility, control of cardiac arrhythmias or hypertension, again, within limits. Dave?
D, education. The most innocuous, most effective and acceptable means of affecting behavioral control or change is education. The educative process, which includes propaganda techniques, does not merely transmit information but belief or value system as well. It is the latter which often provides the impetus to dramatic and difficult to understand behaviours, e.g. suicidal terrorist activities, etc. Special techniques. Number 1. Ooh, what's that word, Mackie?
Hypousia, yeah.
And self-hypnosis. Autosensus. This is a real but very poorly understood phenomena. Contrary to popular belief, hypnosis is effective only with very cooperative and suggestible subjects. MET is dependent upon the belief system of the subject, particularly in self-hypnosis. Except with rare subjects, the technique does not appear uniformly reliable. Of late, hypnosis and biofeedback are being tied together, apparently on the simple premise that 2 is better than 1. There is no good evidence for or against this linkage. My favourite, ESP, number 2. Interest in this area is on the upswing again, in large part due to current popularity in lay literature of biofeedback technology. This basic premise appears to be that all individuals, or most, have ESP as a latent capability. Mekki, just going to pause on that statement for a second. They knew it, we presumed it, and this is from which year? 1983?
78.
78. Look at that. Yeah. Subject, mind behavior control, and that biofeedback programs will allow it to become manifest. This then becomes the route to mind control, in the sense that the individual will have at his beck and call telepathic, clairvoyant, psychokinetic, or other unusual capabilities. The claims are made by companies offering training programs, marketing biofeedback equipment, or both. Thus far, no evidence other than testimonials has surfaced which substantiates these claims. Mekki.
And sorry, that was 1973, in fact. Past, present, or planned projects by category, as in paragraph 2, which may be misconstrued as a CIA program in mind or behavior control. A. Psychosurgery has supported a basic research project on the localization of memory processes. The experimental animal is the rhesus monkey. Selected areas of the animal's prefrontal lobes are surgically removed, and the animal is tested to determine its ability to remember old tasks and or to learn new ones. This research, or rather this class of research, has been going on in academia for over 35 years. This is 1973, and is deemed respectable in that setting. There are renewal plans upon the expiration of the current contract. This research has been unclassified. B. Psychopharmacology. The FDA program fell into this category. The objective of the Artemis something program was to develop the capability of detecting and nullifying the use of psychoactive drugs on U.S. personnel abroad. The central project in the program was the maintenance of a facility to determine the biological and behavioral activity of certain compounds in mice, rats, and monkeys. Per direction, all projects have been cancelled and are in various phase-out stages. Associated with the agency, or associations with the agency, have been classified. Major contractors, don't know. The rest is unreadable.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes next is behavior modification. Operant conditioning, biofeedback. No work in this area has been supported in the past. Biofeedback will be associated with the agency and will be classified. Unreadable. 2. This is 1 and now 2. Studies. This is an ongoing project whose goal is to determine whether the potential can be used as an indicator that an individual may have undergone some conditioning process impinging on his value system. This is the contractor work in association. Completely unreadable. This must be the actual companies and institutions that work with him. Hypnosis. past involvement was to use expertise of a contractor who had been tasked to examine other things to stay abreast of developments in the field. Current plans call for preliminary work on hypnosis in the context of the program. Probable contractor is unreadable. Association with the agency will be classified, but the work will be unclassified. So we know what they did, but we can't tell you who did it.
And
that's the music, I think, Dave.
Can you believe it? Well, you've come to the end of another Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mackie. Catch us Tuesday and Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern US time for Plato's Cave. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on all of our stuff. I want you to follow us to get our numbers up. And what do we say, Mackie, to all our listeners?
Be safe!
Be safe!